Um, Byron stopped by and asked me to send him the link to the meeting, and he grabbed a packet too. So he'll be here at some point.
Okay. Let's move on then to the review of the minutes from the last meeting, or the notes from the last meeting. There were some things that we talked about. Well, first of all, does anybody have any corrections or additions to the minutes?
I move that we accept the minutes as submitted.
Okay, it's been moved. Is there a second to that?
I'll second it.
Okay,
This is
moved and
Steve.
second. Yeah, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Okay. Ryan, was that an aye from you and Curtis?
Yes. Aye.
Okay. Thanks. We'll accept those as submitted. There are a bunch of questions in the minutes that we asked, and we were looking for input and answers, but I assume Chris is going to touch on that when we get to the the update.
Mm-hmm.
Not to put you on the spot, Chris, but I can prompt you with the questions that I have highlighted and stuff. Next item on the agenda is this generated a lot of the paper we have, the revenue and expense reports from 2018, 19, 20, and then 2021 year to date. There is a summary in your packet that is on page 7 of 127. And the thing that I'd like to point out is that, over that, 3 full years and 1 partial year, it shows what we did 2018 was a great year for us. It was the last normal year, if you want to call it that, before COVID started impacting operations and so forth. So the 2019 and 2020 both are affected by the virus and all those protocols, and the fact that people couldn't get into Canada and all that sort of thing. I don't know, Chris, did you have any comments about the revenue stream like year to date?
Yeah, so the revenue stream year to date is tracking even with last year a little bit. One thing to keep in mind about the revenue, and one of the biggest categories we have in revenue, is fuel sales, and that fluctuates a lot. So that can drive this a little bit and inflate that number a little bit. But on the flip side, the expense reflects that as well. When we're selling fuel cheap, we're buying it cheap, and when we're selling it high, we're buying it high. In 2018, that $283,000 revenue that was added to the reserves, I believe that a good portion of that was an insurance claim reimbursement from the breakwater that it was repaired originally back in 2017, and it carried over to 2018. So that kind of paints kind of a cloudy picture. It's not 100% accurate. And I'll also say anything that I can't answer tonight, Dave Goldman couldn't be here tonight, but at the November 1st meeting, he said he'd be here. He's committed to that. So we can follow up with those sorts of questions as well.
Okay, did somebody else just join here?
Byron just
It was Byron.
Okay. Hi, Byron.
Hey.
We already started the meeting, Byron. We've gotten through the number 2 and number 3 on the agenda.
You're ahead of time, aren't you?
A little bit, yeah. But we agreed to loop back and do public comment. The things that we just covered were the minutes from the last meeting, and there were no corrections or additions. And we agreed that there'd be some questions later about the open-ended questions that were asked. And then we just talked about the revenue and expense items that are summarized nicely on page 7 of 127 in the packet. I understand you have a packet.
Yeah, I do.
So
Ken, I while we're talking about revenue and expenses, I made the mistake of going through every one of these years individually without seeing that the benefit of that summary. But a few things jumped out at me. One is repairs and maintenance. In 2018, we only expended $13,127 on repair and maintenance. 2019, it went up to $118,000. 2020, it came down to $40,000, and so far year to date, we're at $13,000. The 118,000 has to be some sort of anomaly, and I'm not exactly sure what we did in 2019 that generated $118,000 worth of internal repairs. Chris might have the answer to that.
I do. That's when we had that fuel pipe replaced and got a new dispenser down at the fuel dock. You know, the fuel pipe that runs
Oh, yeah,
on the
yeah.
bottom of the hoist pier there? We got that replaced. I want to say that was about, gosh, I want to say it was right around 50,000. And then we bought a new dispenser and they were about 20,000 as well.
Yeah, that's I mean, that's a big deal to go from 13,000 to 118,000 in 1 year.
Yeah.
That just jumped off the page at me when I had all these sheets out in front of me. And the next one that just jumped out in front of me is just one that's going to lead to my last comments. I keep going back to the indirect cost allocation, and that's what we pay the city. In 2018, it was $120,000. 2019, it was $160,000. 2020, it was $217,000. And so far, year to date, it's $106,000, on pace to be in the average of about $175,000.
Right.
You know, this, and now we're going to discuss, after saying all that, now we're going to discuss how we can charge the marina tenants more to pay to dredge so we can keep the marina open for the city. So it's just, every time I started going through these pages, and Chris, this is all your fault. You gave me this packet. You printed it out for me, and you should have known that this was going to happen. So you printed it out for me, and I had the opportunity to sit down and look at it. And every time I turned the page, I got a little bit more aggravated with the fact that we're gonna sit here and we're gonna talk about charging more and more to pay off a bond early, and then eventually get to another bond, just so we can keep the marina open, so we can contribute to the city to pay our so-called overhead. I'm kind of at my wit's end about this. It just doesn't make any sense to me anymore. I understand that we have to pay the overhead to keep the marina crew employed, the HR services, the payroll services, all the things that have to do with that. But in 2020, we gave the city $217,135 for that.
Yeah.
It's a lot of freaking money. That's a lot of money. And I understand, and that doesn't even count the interfund software contribution, which is another separate line item. We're paying for the software for the rest of the city. Now there's a $50,000 proposed line item to increase the marina software, to pay for a marina upgrade software, and all this. And then I go back to, and Chris, this was a great presentation you made for the city council, or for the working group, about the marina rates. And we continue to use this fallacy of comparing us, and we want to be 80% of La Conner, Cap Sandy, Anacortes, Everett, and Des Moines. We are in no way close to 80% to any of those marinas. I personally visited every single one of them this summer, every single one of those marinas. And we are not even close to having the type of services that they offer, with the exception of the Anacortes shuffle, which happens every day at noon because they can't figure out their software. So, you know, I keep looking at this, and I don't want to try to hijack the meeting. I just been thinking about this all day when I kept going over and over this stuff. There's got to be a better way. There has to be a better way than to put the burden for the dredging on the marina tenants. There has to be something else.
So I agree with the indirect cost allocation. um, when it went up to, when I found out it went up this high, it was extremely frustrating to me. I mean, imagine that you're working your tail off to try to make something better, but then in a sense, the carpet gets pulled out from underneath you. You're having a good year, you're watching the numbers, the year closes, and then wham, you get hit with this. It's extremely frustrating. And I know that the city has to charge it by state law. But what I don't know is why do they have to charge so much? How many years did the marina go on without this? It was up, uh, I want to say the first year I remember Mac talking about it was like 2008, 2009, somewhere around there. So the marina went on for many, many years that way. I've tried to lobby for a lower indirect cost allocation, but I lose every time. The second part about, that's just a piece of it. You're right. There's the software piece, there's a motor pool piece, there's an engineering piece, there's all kinds of little pieces. So we're probably, if we did the math, we're probably giving back to City Hall somewhere between 15 to 20% of our earnings right off the top. And that's painful for a marina that's struggling to keep everything going, that knows we need repairs, but we can't always make those repairs. So everything you're saying is true. As far as getting the bond for the marina tenants to pay for, the dredging that the marina enjoys and that brings tax dollars and people into restaurants and bars, it's my intention. I'm actually going to be talking to the city council October 27th, and introducing the dredge process to the city council. At that point, I do plan on planting the seed again for some city money. I think that at the last meeting, and I agreed with what Byron said, that the council seemed very receptive to helping out. I think we've got some real allies on the council now for the marina. So I'm hoping that we're going to get some money from them. I have no idea what that looks like. So I couldn't tell you how much that is, but we have to start that conversation on the 27th in earnest with them. That we anticipate it's going to be $4 to $5 million, and what are you guys going to contribute? Basically, is the way that needs to go. So I feel your pain, JJ. I feel it big time, probably more than you will know. But it's the reality right now. I can't change that right now. It's frustrating.
Yeah, I don't recall. Of course, we have a new finance director now, but in the past, when we had, Doug Merriman came and did a couple presentations to us at different times that talked about that cost allocation number. And yeah, Chris is right. It is required by the state, but the requirement is one thing, and then how it's applied is another. And as Chris mentioned, all these other funds, and you too, JJ, these other funds where we're paying portions of other things, they are typically defined as costs that, if we were an independent entity, we would be paying these costs. But to the extent that it applies to like software and motor pool and some of this other stuff, that's a pretty silly argument to make. We're already paying all that stuff ourselves.
Yeah.
So part of that, I think we need to really work on our presentation and work on some of the council people too in advance of that meeting on the 27th.
Absolutely.
So that we can make these points to various people, and we can probably divide up the council and make some assignments and so forth. I don't know. How do you guys feel about that? Would you be willing to participate?
Well, I would certainly be willing to participate, and as someone who's been in the marina, only Byron has probably been in the marina longer than I have in this group. That I would be more than happy to lobby and just It'd be amazed that I know some of them understand what happens at the marina, but most of them don't. They don't. They have no idea. They just know that there is a marina. That some of them think it's a park.
What?
Yeah, that's true.
And
well, it actually says that on our sign out in the front that it's a city.
Yeah, it does. It does. So, we have to. I think enough is enough. I think I've reached the point where I'm willing to say enough is enough. We can't continue. The marina tenants can't continue to carry the water for everybody. For the city's ability to have a marina. It really can't. It's becoming, if we had to do what, we're going to talk about later and increase the dredging to $2.16 a month per foot, there will be an exodus, just like there was when we did it, the last time we did it, which was roughly 15 to 25% or somewhere that people left. They did eventually came back, but there will be an exodus because you know what? I could very easily right now get a slip at Cap Sandy, a 45-foot slip at Cap Sandy, pay roughly the same amount of money, and have restaurants and have pump out and have all the marine services I wanted right there at the dock. Granted, it's 25 minutes from my house. It's not 7 minutes from my house. But it's getting to that point where I'm looking for more services. I'm looking for more creature comforts. The Wi-Fi was a great addition, Chris. That was a great upgrade. It works beautifully. And I think it's working great for everybody in the marina right now. And that was great. And the more of that stuff we can do, the better off we are. We're paying for our own Wi-Fi, if you will. And that all came out of our reserve funds, right? I mean, we didn't get any help from anybody with that. So
correct.
And we didn't even get the city's fiber, right?
Not yet. We're going to change it up a little bit. It's still running off of Xfinity, but eventually it's going to run off of
the city fiber.
Yeah. It'll be the same signal that we use in the office. So
okay.
Eventually.
We got to do something. The tenants are they're counting on us. I mean, to make, to be their advocate, so to speak. And I venture to say, if we canvass the tenants, not that I'm advocating that, if we canvass the tenants, they would overwhelmingly say, leave the dredge fee as it is and pay off the delta from the reserve funds. I bet an overwhelming number of people would opt for that rather than increase their monthly bill. Just my personal opinion, but I think I've talked to a few people about it, and it's gonna, maybe this is a good segue to get to that. But what does everybody else think? Ryan, what do you think?
I agree with you, JJ. Right after they had that city council meeting and then the Woodby Times, they kind of misquoted, or I don't know what that article was, but they came out with, hey, we're increasing the dredge fee on the tenants. And I heard tenants around here go, what the hell's going on? They're going to raise the rates. And I mean, and that went through here like crazy with some of these tenants that are around here. So that's why I said that messaging, if however you do it, has to be handled delicately. And unfortunately, it made the paper and it wasn't very delicate. And so there was a lot of concern about that. Yeah. And they kind of look at it as, hey, you're already raising our rates. Now you're going to raise the dredge fee. And we talked about that a little bit last week. I don't mean to get ahead of myself, about the potential of, okay, we'll increase the dredge fee and then forego the rate increase. But somebody pointed out, we worked so hard for a rate increase to give you the finances to do what you need to with the marina. It seems kind of counterintuitive. So I think JJ is absolutely right. There's got to be a better way to pay for it than on the backs of the marina tenants, because you tack on the dredge fee followed by a rate increase. there's going to be a lot of people that are really upset about that.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah, I don't, and unfortunately, there are no easy answers either. Just because we were talking about that revenue projection, that page 7 of 127, I was a little surprised to see, in the years 2019 and 2020, that we, in total, we added about $90,000 to reserves during that time frame. So, it's not like we're in the current situation that we're just raking in the money. We have over time built our resources, our reserve accounts up to a reasonable level. But as we all know, that in the future, we're going to have to pay for some additional engineering and so forth. And then if anything breaks, we've got to fix it. So it's a real dilemma. We've got a respectable reserve. And I think, well, certainly the reserve is paying for the first premium on the new loan. It's about 104,000, something like that. And that was not budgeted. We weren't anticipating that. And it was a little more than the amount we budgeted for the retirement of the old debt. So, we are dipping into reserves. I don't want to end up in a situation where we just say, okay, we're going to spend down our reserves in order to reduce rates or keep rates stable, and then find ourselves in a hole again like we were, 7 or 8 years ago when we had no reserves to do anything. If something was not budgeted well in advance, we had to just kind of squeak by. So
But you remember, I don't want to interrupt, Ken, but you remember the reason we were that way is because we rewired CDOC and we built the floats and we bought the floats, spent over $1 million out of the reserves to rewire CDOC and get the new floats and the new landing. And that was a good thing. That was a very good thing. And, and I read somewhere in this presentation that, it's a violation, or someone gets very upset if you spend down the reserves below a certain level. Well, that obviously wasn't the case when we did the rewiring on CDOC, because we took the reserves damn near down to zero. I think it was probably real. I think there were like $20,000 or $30,000 left in the reserves when we paid for the rewiring of CDOC and the float. You know what? And people saw tangible results. They saw a new walkway, and they saw a new landing float, and they saw new wiring, albeit not great wiring, but they saw new wiring.
If so, really, what we're talking about, JJ, the reserves. So we had the reserves that we spent down on the projects you mentioned, but in the background there's a reserve required for the bond, roughly $250,000, I think is what it is. That reserve was never touched. That's set like aside. It's out of the picture. So we always had that. We had to have that for the bond. But you're right about the reserves. When I became harbor master, there was nothing, basically. And what we're looking at now is, if we say, okay, we're not going to raise the rates, we're just going to use the reserves to pay for the rates, it's going to be really hard pressed, because we're going to wipe them out, because that's about what we have. If we say, okay, we want to start the dredging project, which we do, and we know that the initial study, the permits and all that, the groundwork before you even dig is $200,000 or $300,000, we're going to have to come up with that money somehow. And, we can ask the city for that and we can lobby for that. But the truth of the matter is, I've searched high and low, and there are not any grants out there for dredging, essentially, for our situation. So that puts us back in the hands of getting another bond, or going to the city, or a combination of both. I mean, I don't know I can't tell you that I know if you have to have a certain level of reserves to get a certain dollar amount of a bond. I mean, it's a city marina, so the city's always going to reserves, and maybe it's issued to the city, not the marina. I don't know that. Maybe that's a question we should.
Yeah, I can address that, Chris. The bonds that we've used in the dredging process and in the refinance are general obligation bonds of the city, and that was done because as a standalone entity, the marina wouldn't be able to get the advantageous rates that the general obligation bonds from
Mhm.
the city was. Now, the city's rating has gone down a bit because primarily the cost of the water treatment plant and that kind of stuff. But it's still much better than we could get as a standalone entity. And that was, of course, one of the factors that drove the whole refinance thing is just that rates are, sub 1% rates didn't exist when we did the last improvement bond. So that was an opportunity. And then the other thing that we did to increase our carrying costs is to go from the 10-year maturity on the old bonds to 5 years. So, that means we've got to schedule principal reduction payments that we didn't used to have to meet. So that's what's almost doubled the debt service required on the bonds. We only have to pay them for 5 years instead of another 10 years, which is a big saving. But that's what has put us in that bind. And that ship has sailed, so to speak, because that transaction was authorized by the council and executed by the finance director. And it's already in place, that 5 year, whatever it is, 0.89% interest rate financing. And we are on December 1st, we make the first payment on that. And then we've got to have resources on hand to pay it again. I think I noticed, and Chris, you and I talked about this briefly, but it seems like we make 2 interest payments a year. Is that right? On the bond,
Yeah.
and then one principal payment at the end of the year.
Exactly.
So we've got a little bit of time to work through this and to pay, current expenses, some from reserves, but again, we don't want to kid ourselves that the money we have in reserves is going to go very far as that sort of thing goes.
And we also have to keep in mind, and there's no way to know this effect, what's the economy going to do? Is voting going to tank like it did 5 years or so ago, or is it going to stay solid? It's on a big upswing right now, but what's going to happen in the future too? And if we don't have any reserves and voting's on a downswing and we have a catastrophic event at the marina, I mean, everything's $100,000 just to run that pipe underneath the hoist pier. That was, $50,000-$60,000. So then what do we do? I don't think the city will close the marina. I think they would help us out, but I don't know for sure.
Well, we have to make the case to them that's where we are. We're in a situation where, we can't compete, as JJ has commented, we know we can't compete in terms of amenities, proximity to channelways and boatyards and all that kind of stuff. And so we have to, I firmly believe we have to operate at somewhat of a rate structure that's discounted from those full service places. But that's going to require, some real soul searching, whether we, one thing that we tried in the past was to push this issue of being a city park. The Parks Department gets money from the citizens, from the taxpayers.
Yeah.
And the marina doesn't.
Yeah.
What's the deal? We're a park, but we don't get the revenues from it. So I don't know. There are a number of angles that I think we need to play, but also the formula for cost allocation. We need to attack that as well and see if we can get those hands out of our pocket so that we can do what we're designed to do, which is to pay our own bills and maybe not so many of the other bills that are at the city level.
Ken, excuse me, Ken, I've been waiting
Yeah.
patiently for a public comment period.
Okay, you can comment. Go ahead.
First of all, I want to thank JJ. He was saying things tonight that I've been trying to bring up at various public comment meetings for a couple of years now, and that's that I think that this administrative fee that we pay to the city, they've got to understand that this marina has a public use as well. And if we wanted to play hardball as marina tenants, we could just say that, we could restrict the public from the marina. I mean, we're paying 100% of the bill, so why should the public be able to access our marina? But on top of that, when I saw Chris's report on marina revenues and stuff, and I've followed this for the last few years, I was kind of struck by the fact that our revenues are great for 3 months during the summer with moorage, but then it drops off 9 months of the year. Our revenues are really dropped off. And so, I understand the problem with the A and B docks. So people can take those boats out of the water for the winter time. And so we have to make accommodations for wintertime moorage on those docks. But the larger slips, I was always under the assumption that we had, a fairly lengthy waiting list and there shouldn't be any drop off in the winter months on those docks. But I talked to Chris today and he said that as of right now, our waiting list is depleted. So I called Anacortes Marina, Cap Sandy Marina and La Conner Marina. Anacortes, I just said that I was looking for moorage for a 36-foot boat. Would there be a waiting list? Anacortes Marina said they have a waiting list for all sizes of slips of 2 to 3 years. That's Cap Sandy. And La Conner said their waiting list was 1 to 2 years. And so those two marinas can fill their slips even at the rate that they charge all year long. And we can't do that. And I think that speaks to the fact that we are maxing out the amount that we can charge per slip. Now I'm all in favor of doing whatever we can to pay for our dredging costs, and I don't think we should be dipping into our reserves to do that. But we still have a real problem. I think the city just has to pitch in because we don't have what the other marinas have to offer. That's just a plain and simple fact.
Yeah.
So that's my public comment. Thank you.
So,
Okay,
Byron,
thanks.
just to clarify, I was speaking of the 40-foot slips, and I apologize for that. In referring to FDOC filling that up, Stephanie's gone through the 40-foot list, and people are just not ready, or for whatever reason, they're not ready to take those. As far as the 36s and the 32s go, and the 24s, there are wait lists, very long wait lists for those. It's the 28-foot category that kills us. Remember when we looked at my computer, I showed you all those white boxes? And maybe we need to do something similar in that 28-foot category that we've done with the 24s. So, but that's the one that's killing us, really killing us.
But excuse me, Chris, the other thing though is we're only getting, I was kind of surprised that we only get 3 months worth of increased revenue for the summer months. It seems to me that people, even that get a reduced rate from the winter, would keep their boats there for a longer period of time at full rates in the summertime, would they not? I mean, our summer goes from, late April to, end of September. I don't know why we have to give do we really have to give reduced rates for those months on those docks?
On those 24-foot slips, A and B?
Yeah.
No,
I mean, crabbing,
to.
people are still crabbing, and I think people would want to keep their boats at regular rates in those slips for longer than 3 months. I think it just seems to me.
It's absolutely something we can look at without a doubt. And when we set that up, we haven't had a change in that program. I don't know how many years it's been now,
Yeah.
6 or 7 years. So maybe as we look at all of this, that's part of the change. And maybe we set something up on DDoc similar to that, and maybe it's just a 3-month or a 6-month special. Who knows?
Yeah,
So
and
no,
maybe
I'm
if you
open to
get,
that.
I mean, you could make it so that if you get the winter mortgage rates, you have to commit to, 5 or 6 months of summer rates. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah, we
is there
can
anything
make it
wrong with that?
anything we want,
Yeah,
and we can change it. So yeah,
yeah,
I'm open for that.
Yeah, I think
discussion.
one of the driving factors was on the smaller slip. Well, first of all, our marina is configured with too many small slips, and
Yeah,
Yeah.
everybody knows that. But the other thing about it was that in the smaller slips, it's so much easier now to pull the boats out for the non-crabbing season and all that sort of thing. So yeah, if we had a mix of larger slips, we would be insulated somewhat from that type of activity. But when we've run the numbers and tried to figure out how to reconfigure our slip sizes and so forth, we always keep running into the fact that, yeah, that makes a lot of sense, but it also costs money. And the grant applications that we had outstanding, they pretty much discounted everything that would have helped us earn revenue in exchange for, the things that, like building a new beach and stuff like that, that would be more palatable for the general public, but really do nothing for the marina. In fact, be somewhat of a negative to the marina, I thought. So, yeah. So what I would suggest is that we put together some talking points in the manner of a presentation to the council. Just to pour salt in our wounds, by the way, when the city council allocates time to a department, like, we're a department of the city, so the marina wants an hour of time to do a presentation for something, we have to pay for that.
yeah, that's yeah,
So that's a kick in the teeth.
yeah. I use
So
a lot of time too. So
yeah, so I think the part of what I'm saying with that is we need to have a real focused presentation that says, look, either step up or you're going to lose a resource here, and we'll see where that goes. That was the whole driving force behind trying to start a port district here, all those many years ago. But there wasn't any sense in the public eye that that was important to them.
Well, it might be important if it was phrased in such a way that that the city will lose the marina, that they will lose access to the marina. And, it was saying, hey, the marina tenants pay 100% of the freight. Without a port district, general civilian access to the marina will go away. That may be the way to, that may be the driving force. It might not be. But it's certainly better than, let's just say, let's try to sell people on a port district without, I don't want to call it a threat, but without a carrot and a stick, so to speak.
Yeah.
It is, this isn't probably the meeting that we all anticipated tonight, and I'm sorry for bringing this all up, but you know what? We got to do something. We have to. We owe it to the rest of the tenants. We owe it to Chris and the staff. We really do. They work so hard for us, and they work so hard, for this city park that isn't a city park, that we got to do something.
I appreciate those comments, JJ. Thank you. And I actually really appreciate you going through this line by line. So that's great. In my mind, everything is on the table right now. Maybe we make a run at a port district. Maybe we let them fold us into the Parks Department. I don't know, but in my mind, everything's on the table right now, because I see that we want to pay this bond off, and I see we want to start dredging. But with our reserves and our revenue and expenses, I don't know how we can do them both at the same time without some help from someone. it just doesn't pencil out any other way.
Yeah. So what I would recommend is if, you know, some of these thoughts are great ideas and comments, and if everybody can spend a few moments just jotting down those thoughts that you think are most important to the council's consideration of some sort of a meaningful financial involvement in the marina, like talking millions of dollars, not hundreds of dollars, and present it to them just in that time, you know, in that kind of a format. We do understand that for many of us, the option of moving to another facility is probably not realistic, just because of the commuting distances and the fact that there are limited slips in other places as well. But
Well,
anyway, yeah, go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, so you're kind of right. I just want to touch on that moving. So last time you said you lost about 30%. That was, but it eventually came back. From the ones that I've heard now, they've had their boats here long enough that they're looking at it like, you know what? It's not worth having a boat anymore, right? It's not like I'm going to move away then come back. It could just be we're just done. And so there's that consideration too.
Yeah,
Because then they won't come back because they won't have a boat.
Right. That's a good point.
I've talked to a couple of boat brokers. Well, Curtis is on the line here too, but I've talked to a couple of boat brokers recently that they're talking about how people are buying anything that floats, and usually bigger than they had before if they've had a boat before. So it's a healthy market out there. I mean, it's a good sign that there's a future in the industry, but that doesn't mean that the general taxpayer in this area should get a free pass as far as enjoying the facilities or enjoying. You know, a lot of people just like to walk the docks and look at birds and seals and stuff and boats and so forth. It's
Fish.
yeah, and that's what you know. All the brochures, whether it's the Chamber of Commerce or the city or whatever. Well, even the logo of the city features an anchor and a couple of sails and so forth. But I think we need to approach from the standpoint that this is a unique asset and it's in peril, and you know it's going to take some major rethinking. You know, port district, formation of a port district is a very cumbersome and somewhat expensive thing to do. And it's yet another bureaucratic entity that, you know, you got to have your own offices and staff and computers and all that kind of stuff. So if there's a way to solve the problem through this mechanism of the city that we belong to, I would think that would be our first choice, and well, maybe most likely too. I don't know.
I would agree. I would agree with Ken. It's port districts are hard. Yet Coopville has a port district, you know,
Yeah.
and so you know, they don't manage anything the size of the marina, even with all the different entities of the Coopville port. It's still not as big as our marina is, but you know, it is cumbersome. It is ugly. It would be almost impossible, in my estimation, to get the voters to approve a port district in Oak Harbor. But unless they were forced with losing something that was important to the city.
So just a question for Curtis. You probably frequent more marinas than a lot of people on this call. I mean, do you hear and see that other marinas are struggling the way we are? I shouldn't say financially, but with choices in future financial questions.
It's a difficult question to answer because I'm not involved financially when I'm walking the docks, etc.
Yeah.
I can say that looking backwards at places like Cap Sante, It used to be a real hole with docks that wiggled as you walked and crummy old boathouses. And it has evolved and progressed and continued to do so. And I'd like to see that for us. I don't know that, I was at condo 17 at Skyline today, and I don't know how they're paying for their stuff, but they've got the new see-through, no shadow docks and stuff like that going on. It appears that the other marinas are getting money from somewhere and doing improvements, but I don't know where.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Well, just because trying to get a port district is cumbersome and difficult, and as JJ say, maybe impossible, I don't necessarily think that it's not worth looking into, because sometimes things that are difficult pay that biggest dividends, and like kind of Curtis said, maybe if we were a port district, instead of all the improvements and everything on the back of the tenants, get the money from someplace else, and we can really grow into be a destination. Right now we're a destination because of the fuel prices, but that's about it.
Yeah, it's more of a stopover scenario. Okay, good. So if you guys want, on the 27th, I'll be making a presentation, and maybe a couple of you could also give a small presentation on, why the city council should have, it would actually be the need for dredging and financing the dredging. And it could be piggybacked on mine. I don't know. Ken's made presentations to them before and talked to them. And if you're available, Ken, that would be awesome. We put something, if we could talk about that. And maybe, I don't know, JJ or whoever, the more the better. Not to, be whining or antagonistic, but just to say, hey, there's a real need here. And, we know you hear Chris all the time, but here we are, so you can hear our voice as well. I think Byron talked at the last one, didn't you, Byron, at the one workshop I did recently? So they want to hear from more than me, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, and it may go farther.
Yeah, I think, well, Chris, you and I can put our heads together, and like I said, if anybody, if please put together, like talking points and stuff, and be willing to step up and perhaps at least attend. And sometimes just having a show of force is a pretty strong message too. Not everybody has to say something. As let the presentation talk for itself, but we do need to move this needle, or I'm afraid we're going to be losing this asset, because we can't continue to put larger and larger boats into a smaller and smaller space. By smaller space, I mean, shallower and shallower space. And that's kind of the curse of the location that we have, and we all know that. If it was a deep water port, we wouldn't be having this conversation. We'd just be looking at market rates and so forth. But that we need to make that impression to the city and ask them to get creative and come up with some solutions that will make a significant impact on this upcoming dredging proposal. And I agree, Chris, with that should be our focus. I mean, that's a developing need, and if it's not addressed, it's going to be the end of the functionality, except for very small boats, of our marina.
Yep.
Are those things in person, or are they Zoom, or where?
They can be, so the workshops are in this format right here. The city council meetings are a hybrid. They're both. They're this format, but if you want to make comment, you can go there. They're having all city staff use this format, but if, say, Ryan, you wanted to say something after a presentation or even during the public comment, you just go there and then register and go to the podium. They'd ask that you wear a mask. So,
Right.
yeah.
Well, I agree with Ken. Like the kind of the show of force would kind of go a long way. So they're not just hearing from you, Chris. But I didn't know how that was. Is it Zoom or is it in person or what? And are you,
Right.
that was all.
Yep.
Yeah, it's likely we're going to still have some Zoom meetings in the near future.
Yeah.
I don't mind.
Yeah, I like the Zoom meeting format, but in terms of show of strength, it kind of dampens things a little bit, takes
Yeah.
a little bit of the glamour out of it.
And this isn't
okay,
a
so-
one-shot thing. This is a multiple.
Oh yeah, we're going to have to work on this for quite some time. That's why I'm suggesting that we focus on the future dredging as a focal point,
Mhm.
and then we can talk about the downside and what some of the more severe things are that we might have to consider might be. So for marching orders, please send in your talking points to Chris, if I can ask Chris to be the recipient of that. And then we'll strategize about how we go about this presentation and what we focus on, and we'll be very clear with all of you about what our outlines and ideas are and so forth, and then solicit additional participation when the time comes on the 27th, which is not that far away.
No, and I might add that I believe the packet for that workshop's got to be in maybe the 13th, maybe the 15th. I'll find out and send out an email to you gentlemen and let you know what the drop date is. And if you're not comfortable in talking, you can always send your comments and we can put them on a slide and read them and then put your name underneath them. So
Yeah.
that's fine. That works well too.
I have a question that I don't know the answer to this, or if any of you guys do. Sales tax went up. City of Oak Harbor gets a chunk of the sales tax now. Can we tap into any of that?
No. So we pay what they call state leasehold tax, 12.8% or whatever it is, 8.7, I think. And then there's the sales tax. So leasehold taxes on mortgage and storage and things like that. Sales tax is on diesel. There's actually a component of diesel that has tax. And then the goods we sell, the oil additives, hats, whatever, those sorts of things we sell. So our biggest generator of sales tax is the diesel. But it's not, it's not a huge amount, and no, we don't see any return on that.
I didn't mean necessarily from the marina. I was looking at it from the bigger picture of the cities getting a chunk of the pie that they didn't used to. I don't know where it's going. Can we get some of it?
Oh.
Like every time I sell a boat now, the city gets some money from the boat I sell. Not just the state, not just the county, but the city gets some.
I can find out. I don't know.
It's if we're looking for where might there be money to ease the cost of dredging or upgrades or something, it just seemed like it might be a source.
Yeah, I'll ask David about that.
It's been a long time since I bought a boat, but is there an excise tax on boat purchases?
There's a sales tax if it's bought here and you live here. There's a Department of Licensing or Department of Revenue instead of Department of Licensing if it's documented. We pay the state one way or the other.
Yeah. Okay. Well, good. That's a good comment. We'll look into that.
We'll find out. It's good. I didn't know that.
Okay. If it's all right with everybody, let's move on to the general update. Chris, did you have some things you wanted to mention in an update?
Sure. So staff's been busy from the office to the maintenance crew. We recently, I'm sure you saw us putting that plastic pipe down around the south side of the marina and in front of the harbor master's office, just about wrapped up with that. That was an item that's required in our DNR lease. Apparently, they didn't like the fact that those logs were hitting substrate. So tried to negotiate it out, but we couldn't. So we had, that was actually due back in June, but we got an extension because we were just too busy. So that's wrapping up. We're wrapping up the Wi-Fi project. Thank you for your comments, JJ. Glad people are liking it. Still some areas we're working on, N to E dock, in F dock, getting some signal out there. On the heels of, yeah. Are you getting
Yeah.
any of it?
Yeah, some of it, sometimes it works. Like I said, it's kind of hit or miss. But when it does work, it seems to work pretty decent. A lot better than the other one.
We're going to put a directional antenna facing out in your direction, so that'll be nice. And then on the heels of that, the security cameras will be coming in pretty soon. That's pretty exciting. All of that Wi-Fi and security cameras go hand in hand. The cameras plug into the switch boxes that the Wi-Fi access points are in, so that'll be pretty neat. I know the cameras have been ordered. And from what I understand, the marina's first, because this is a big citywide project. So as soon as they come in, it's literally a plug and play thing, the way I understand it. Some of you may have heard about the fish pens, the salmon pens. That's a program that ran from 1982 through 2011, 2012, where we raise salmon in the marina, typically 30,000, either coho or chinook. That program's coming back. We got word that we're going to get 30,000 coho in December timeframe. Towards the end of this month, on October 3rd, 23rd, and 30th, we're going to be building the fish pens. So that'll be fun. Those are Saturdays. Recently, I was invited to attend the Fidalgo Island, San Juan Island chapter of the Puget Sound Anglers Club. And they made a $3,000 donation towards the project. So that was really exciting. I'm also seeking other grant opportunities within the Oak Harbor community, and should find out about one probably within a few weeks, I would say. So that's going to be pretty neat. That's when you talk about parks and stuff, that's one of the things we can do to give back. Going to tie it in with the schools. Those of you that have been around a while I hope you remember seeing the kids coming down when we'd get them and they'd feed them and let them go and all of that stuff. So that was fun. And I hope to get as much grant funding as I can. And this is a project that the mayor supports. So he's also said that the city will kick in on that project since it's kind of a community outreach one. So still working out the details, but I'm hoping it doesn't cost the marina anything except our time to feed them and care for them, and then put on those outdoor classroom type scenarios out there. So kind of a fun project that the community and I think a lot of boaters really enjoyed seeing them as well. So.
Hey, Chris, the construction of the pens themselves, is that volunteer labor or staff labor?
That is going to be a combination of both. The Anglers Club, there were about 8 guys that committed, so they'll be there. I know some of our marina tenants are going to be there. And then, of course, I'll have staff there. I'm not really keen on volunteers. Well, I shouldn't say that. Some I would be okay with running our table saws and drill presses and junk like that.
I was going to say, I have no shortage of volunteers.
Oh, you do, don't you, actually? Let's talk about that. Let me get a firm list. They can hold things and drive screws, right? That's what we need. Yep. So, yes. Yeah, I forgot. Oh, yeah. Let's talk more about that. So
we will.
I'll be in touch with you. Yeah. So,
Okay.
yeah, go ahead, Byron.
Oh, well, I was just gonna say, as far as maintenance costs, you say it's all it's gonna take is a little bit of our employee time, but I calculated out that if we've got one employee spending a half hour a day feeding or retrieving that's going to cost us as marina tenants about $12,000 a year,
Oh, wow.
based on I think our cost for our employees is about $70 an hour, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you include all the benefits and stuff.
Yeah.
So
You're right.
that's not an insignificant expense, and I think we need to get some compensation for that.
Absolutely. Like I said, I'm working as many grants as I can and stuff. Did you calculate that's a great thing. I'll admit, I did not calculate out the employee cost. Did you calculate that on having the fish for roughly 6 months or for 12 months?
Oh, well, I calculated for 12 months. I didn't know about how, but and then I'm sure there's going to be more than a half hour a day anyway. There's going to be a pen's going to break every once in a while, and and that to me is not a cost that should be borne by marina tenants.
No, I completely understand your thoughts.
So Chris, you mentioned the school district. Are they going to contribute any financial resources?
Not at this time, not that I'm aware of, no. And in fact, it's kind of wishy-washy on the school district right now. Apparently they have a COVID restriction on field trips. So I don't know. They didn't know exactly if this would be considered a field trip or not. So
Chris, I'd be happy to contribute personally, but I want my name on a fish.
Okay, I'll catch you one and you can engrave it. Then we'll
On my name on a fish.
We're actually gonna have a sign on. We're gonna have 2 signs on the pens. And the signs are donated by Jeff Humphrey. One's gonna explain the program, and then there's gonna be one sign that's gonna say something to the effect of these pens were made in part due to donations from XYZ places. And thank you to the volunteers.
The other thing is, I think those pens are going to take up at least one slip. We've got to consider rental from one slip too, do we not?
Yeah, we're thinking about putting them in A2, right at the bottom of the gangway there, across from the dragon boat. Where we took that one finger out, right in that area. But we have had a boat in that one area before, so.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't think the marina tenants need to pay for that.
Yeah. Thank you. Gotcha.
Okay.
Other than that, Stephanie's busy in the office rounding out the year and cleaning stuff up, and we're lucky to have the people there, the maintenance crew. Oh, on a side note, this hasn't been fully announced, but I don't think he really cares. He knows. Neil's decided to retire effective January 31st. So.
Oh, wow.
Just so you guys know that. And he's talking about maybe coming back as a seasonal in the summer. So we'll see how that works out. Which we'd love to have him as a seasonal, no doubt about that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, good to know. Okay, advisory committee comments. Member comments, unless you're already commented out.
I have one comment from some people that I saw walking around. That sign that's out at the corner of the office there that talks about the Mailer Point Trail, and it just has the park sign, and it's pointing well, I'm pointing towards it, which is dumb, but whatever. So it points out to the Mailer Point Trail, and they get out there and they can't get there because obviously it's closed off. Is there any way we could take that sign down?
We'll take it down tomorrow.
Okay.
It's a park sign.
Yeah, it just confuses a couple of people because they're out here walking and they're trying to get there.
Yeah, no, we'll take it down tomorrow. Okay, great. That's an easy one.
Yeah, during this whole process, maybe we can do some liaison work with the Navy too, to see if maybe there's, through their recreation department or something like that. Maybe we can help them get us the attention of some of our, senators, representatives at the federal level to assist us with financing.
Yeah.
Any other committee comments? Okay. I guess the last thing here is our next meeting is on November 1st. But sounds like we'll be meeting, some of us will be meeting in some fashion before the 23rd, so we can put together something. We have to be, because of the public meetings notice and all this kind of stuff, we can't have a quorum in a meeting.
No.
And we can't make decisions and so forth. So what we'll work on is an outline, as I talked about, of the presentation to council, and circulate that around for everybody to, give us a thumbs up or thumbs down, or give us better ideas. And sometimes it's easier to work off of a draft than to come up with things all by yourself. So we'll focus on that. And I guess that's it for the evening. With no
Just
further
one more-
comment.
Just one more thing. If you'd be interested in speaking at the council meetings, just send me an email. And then we can wrap you into whatever Ken and I come up with based on your comments. So
Sure. And again, showing up in force, whether it's Zoom or in person, is important too.
yeah, just the fact that I would introduce, we have Ken and Ryan and Curtis and JJ and Steve from the Marina Advisory Committee here as well. And Byron's here as a non-conditional public speaker. So, the more people, the better. They really,
Sure.
I can tell you that when Byron spoke at the last meeting, they really listened to him, and that started the conversation of City Hall kicking in some money. So they do pay attention to your guys' thoughts.
All righty. Well, all that being said, our next meeting, like I said, is November 1st, the regularly scheduled meeting. And we'll go to adjournment. Thank you very much for your attendance and your thoughts and ideas.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Night.